Welcome back to the Queer Quarters, where we dive deep into the lives and the stories that shape the LGBTQ plus community. I'm your host, Jason, and today we are speaking with a very special ally today.
And I'm your co-host, Neve. We're going to be interviewing Tata, who will be sharing their stories and experiences as an ally.
Before we begin today's conversation, we want to acknowledge that our guest brings a unique and personal perspective from an earlier era, which may differ from current views. We ask that all listeners approach the story with respect and openness to her lived experiences.
Also, please be advised that today's episode discusses sensitive topics such as, but not limited to, abuse, AIDS, alcohol, and death, which might be triggering or upsetting for some. If you feel this content might not be right for you, we encourage you to explore our other episodes that may be more suited in your preferences. Thank you for joining us, and let's all listen with empathy and understanding.
How are you doing today, Tata?
Good.
You excited to be on the podcast?
Yes, I am.
That's good. So, could you start by telling us a bit about yourself and how you first came into contact with the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, it's just something that happened in life. Back when I was younger, it was so well hidden that it was just something you found out about if someone just had entrusted you with that information.
So would you say that's something that not a lot of people really spoke about out loud?
It wasn't spoke about it at all.
What were some of the first impressions of the LGBT community, and how have these perceptions changed over time?
Well, impressions at first, I really don't have any. It just happened kind of naturally as I learned more about it. And since it was something that wasn't spoken about, you kept that to yourself. And my impression of all that was everyone was always so afraid of, how others would react. Because when I was younger, boys, if you said you were, that you liked another boy or that you had another thought, the same thing with girls, it would just become bullying. They would just pick at you because, you weren't man enough, you weren't woman enough. So you just kept everything quiet.
Could you share a specific memory or event from the early days that had a significant impact on you?
Yeah. I had a friend who used to tell us, he used to like to go shopping with us and get dressed and, always help us pick our outfits. And he always said he wanted to, go out clubbing when we went, to sneak into the clubs like we used to back then. And he wanted to dress, we went out the week before, we bought his outfit and everything, and we were all, getting ready and we were going to meet him there. He was so happy, and then we go to the bathroom, and of all places, his mother walks in, because the one place we snuck into, because we were underage, we were like 16. This was late 70s. His mother had gone out, and of all places to go was the place we were at, and run into her. And boy, that wasn't a pretty one.
So how exactly did their mother react?
She beat him up right there in the bathroom, and we were all so scared we all ran out. And then, we didn't see him for a while.
But did you go to the same school with him?
Actually, I went to a different school and we were in different grades.
Oh, okay.
So we were still in high school, and him and his sister were a little older, about a year older. So they had just graduated.
And how would you describe your interactions with him after that situation?
Well, we were friends, so basically, we kind of really never spoke about it. We just knew how the mom felt. And for a while, we would just see him in the neighborhood. And since he was told, we were a bad influence because we would encourage that. And it was one of those things that they told you were going to burn in hell. because of your choices in life. So we would see each other in the park, when everybody went to the park and whatever gatherings we were at. But then, everybody grew apart. I always wonder what happened to them.
And are there any other moments besides that one that really stood out to you?
Oh boy. I had a friend who was so afraid but yet wanted to be so open about it that they took their parent to a talk show, and that's how they revealed it.
That they were gay, or?
Yes, that they were gay.
And do you know how the parent took it, how that interaction went?
Not well.
And, that's the story of a lot of people who came out during those times, especially from very religious backgrounds and ethnic groups.
And
yes.
Puerto Ricans are actually raised of being Catholic. I know some of us are Christian, but as you know, those two are kind of very big on the whole LGBT community and how it's not right. So talking about that last question, you did say that it was in the late 70s. We want to fast forward a little bit into the 80s and mid-80s. You lived through some pivotal moments in the LGBTQ history, like the AIDS crisis. So what are your most vivid memories from this time?
The AIDS crisis, there was a time that you just heard about someone died, and everybody died of cancer then because they didn't have a name for AIDS. So when families didn't know, or if someone died of AIDS, God forbid that anyone found out that your relative died of AIDS, they would say, oh no, he died of cancer, she died of cancer. But in fact, it was that they were ashamed of who that person was.
Do you know anybody who's had this?
I met a lot of people that lived with it and died with it. I met people that were pregnant and had AIDS, and one baby was born with it, and the second, that was a little bit more into the late 80s, early 90s, when they were still experimenting with drugs, and women would take them just to see. But medicine has come a long way, and so has humanity.
I remember one of the songs you recommended to me that talked about a person who died of AIDS.
Can you share with us the song's name?
That was El Barón by Willie Colón.
How did the song make you feel when you first heard it, and how does it make you feel today, and what does it make you think about?
At first, I wasn't sure what the song was talking about, but then I started to listen to the lyrics, and I realized, and it made me think about that one friend in the bathroom whose mother saw him, because in part of the song, the father says that he travels to New York to visit his son, but he walks right past him and doesn't recognize him. And he responds, Father, it's me, your son, the great son, because, he was dressed as a female. And the father was so upset that he never spoke to him again. Yeah, the last information that he found out about his son was that he had died alone in a hospital. And later on finds out, it was of an illness, is what they just called it. Again, even with the song, they still didn't say the word.
And, going back to that idea of being ashamed of the word, which you had mentioned earlier as well, during that time period, a lot of people were ashamed to speak up about it, that they had it, that, they were ashamed that they had it at all, simply because of how the world viewed it. And there was a lot of false information of how people could get it. No one, it was a new disease, and, there wasn't much research on it. And I know from one of my previous interviews on my other podcast, Pride and Prejudice, with the high school counselor, Jamie Transolito, she'd mentioned a story to me about on our celebrities episode. She mentioned Princess Diana, who had met a man with AIDS and shook his hand with full confidence and treated him like a human being, because a lot of the world was scared to even be in the vicinity of someone who had AIDS. There were rumors that you could get it from sharing drinks, just shaking hands, giving a hug, whatever it is. And in fact, it is through blood and sexual contact. And, most importantly is the misinformation that was spread about it, that fear that was put into the people around them, the family, the friends of those who had it, and the person themselves. And, there are stories of people who stayed in the hospital and got disrespected by nurses. The nurses, wouldn't even go in the room without a full hazmat suit and stay as far away from the patient as they could and keep as little contact with them. I mean, they were treated so poorly. And there's all different types of stories of famous people and people who might not even be known with their name, and it's heartbreaking. And it really was just this time of fear and unknowing that caused it all. And I think that's really what incited the fear, was just the lack of understanding and knowledge and the research to go with it.
It's so funny that you mentioned that Princess Diane moment, because I was a young mother then, and I was in the hospital with my child, and there were other mothers there with all kinds of children being ill. And I remember seeing that on the news and thinking, like, okay, she shook someone's hand. Like, isn't that what we're supposed to do? Like, be kind to each other? And it did have a stigma, but thank God for research and people educating themselves, because, you weren't supposed to hug people. I knew people that had it, and just like you said, they would go to the hospital, no one would go visit. It was a sad time.
You've shown a lot of support, and you were a big ally to me, and I know a lot of other people throughout the decades. What motivated you to become an ally, and how have you navigated this role over the decades?
Well, I didn't even know I was an ally till you guys told me. But I guess navigating through it is, I've just always allowed people to be who they were, and those that entrusted their secret to me, I kept it. And other people you meet people, and it wasn't until months later you kind of like notice that they're a couple, but they're always hanging out, but they're always like buddies or girlfriends. And then eventually, even till this day, I still find that some people do that because of the stigma around it all.
We've talked a little bit now as well about a little sad and hard moments of other people's stories. Reflecting on the brighter moments, could you share some joyful or celebratory experiences you've had within the LGBTQ plus community?
Yeah. I've gone to gay wedding. I was the only one on one of the people's side to show up. No one else went.
That's sad.
Yeah. Well, at that time, she had one or two relatives that were supporting them, but couldn't support them that close because they would be outcasted by their relatives. So knowing that I was the one person in life that I've never cared about what other people thought about my friends, because they are who they are. And So I went to that wedding, and it was the most beautiful thing.
Is there anything specific about that wedding that stood out to you that you still remember?
Oh, everything. The happiness that the couple had. Just that sheer joy.
Interesting. And hopefully, one day I can have one.
We need to.
Yeah, I need to plan somebody's event.
We'll bring you.
Yes.
Go out, I plan to go out all pizzazz. If I can save up the money.
I've seen how you put yourself together. So, yeah, it's going to be expensive.
Telling all them boys out there right now, it's going to be an expensive one.
Hey, amazing listeners. Thanks for tuning into the Queer Quarters. Do you love the podcast? Then share the love with friends and on social media to help our community grow. Check out our exclusive merch on Instagram. Just click the link in our bio to see all the cool finds. Can't find what you like? DM us. We have more to share. Want to support us further? Consider donating via Patreon, PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. Every bit helps us keep going. Find all the details on our Instagram bio at The Queer Quarters. Thanks for your incredible support. Now back to the show.
How have you seen public attitude towards the LGBT plus community changes over the year?
Everyone's more accepting because everybody has equipped themselves with knowledge, and the acceptance started late 70s with how life has transpired throughout the years and how we've evolved in many aspects of life that television, you guys with these podcasts, social media, everything. But anyway, as I was saying, the whole world has changed. And even though you still see some hatred out there, the love that's out there is outweighing the hate. So the more we educate ourselves and the more accepting, the less hatred we'll see.
And I definitely agree. I mean, when I go to the pride parades, whether they're the small ones or the big one in New York City, the amount of respect and just love and pure joy on everyone's faces in those streets. I mean, you have people from all sorts of different backgrounds. You have gay, bi, trans, lesbian. They're all there. All the letters. I mean, you just have to ask around, and they all come from different cultures. They were all raised with different religions, different perspectives, different opinions, and around different people. And it really turns your brain to think about what their story might be. And the only way to know would be to ask. And I think, there's an importance in asking, because there's so many people out there willing and wanting to share their story. It's just a matter of someone being there to listen. And hopefully, as this podcast grows some more, we'll be able to share more people's stories who are willing to come forward. And that is entirely our goal. I mean, with the content we have planned coming up for Pride Month and the future episodes we have lined up, there's so much that we're hoping to present to our viewers to learn and grow from as well, because that's what we've been doing for years, and that's what we will keep doing as humans. I mean, whether we're growing and learning more and, politics or the scientific matters or spirituality, there's always going to be progress where the LGBTQ gets some more respect, some more proper education taught to people so that they can be more open-minded and more willing to hear and understand where these people come from and treat them more like humans. So talking back more into the turning points of everything, how would you say your involvement with the LGBTQ community has influenced your family life or your parenting approach?
My family life, I do have relatives that have their preferences. And my kids, I've always raised, I'll put it this way, no one that has ever come into my house has ever had to hide who they are from me. Not for my sake, my children's sake, or anyone's sake. You are who you are, and that's just who I am. So I'm just a person that believes in people and humanity, not what your choice of sexual preferences, your doctor preference, your color, hair. It doesn't matter what another human being chooses as an individual for themselves. You just have to be accepting and loving, because if you're not accepting and loving to others or even your own children, like, you have to show love to others. And that one person that you show love to and that kindness, just that one day, you don't know what kind of day they were having. And a simple smile and accepting of who they are could just change their perspective for a day or maybe a life. And just know that what you say to someone does make a difference, both positive and negative.
Based on your experiences, what advice would you give someone who wants to support the LGBTQ plus community but doesn't know where to start?
That person that you think or that is in the LGBT community, just be accepting. There's always an opportunity that might come up, and let them know. You can start the conversation and say, hey, I know you're part of the community, and just know that I'm here for you.
And I think as well, people go on their own time and do the research online. I mean, there's tons of videos and radio stations and podcasts and blog sites and even books that share these people's stories. So even if you don't know someone personally, if there's not someone in your close circle or your outer circle, there's those outlets online that you could just Google right on your phone and pull up someone's story and just read what it is that they've gone through, how they feel, how it's affected them, how they thought about themselves, how they've struggled with it. I mean, everyone can understand that, you might be straight. You might not relate in that sexual preference or orientation way or with your own gender to someone else in the community. It is not that exact topic you might relate to, but that pain and that lack of human connection and love is something a lot of people can relate to. So starting with just understanding what someone else feels and acknowledging it as someone else's emotions, not trying to change their narrative, not trying to deny their story, I think is also a great first step. Just even acknowledging they're there.
As we look forward, what are your hopes for the future of the LGBTQ plus community?
I would hope that we get to a point in life where everyone is so informed that children no longer have to hide who they are.
I have another little question on that, because we do know the whole thing with the schooling and banning books and stuff on that. How did you feel when all of that was coming up on the news?
Well, that's a very sensitive topic, because a child in kindergarten is still so innocent that they're not seeing the difference in anyone. So it's a really fine line, because anything and everything should be age appropriate, but I believe that there is content out there for every age that is approved by experts, but parents do have the right to make that choice for their child. So during that time, if a parent feels that their child is not ready, or if you're not ready for your child, because that's exactly what it could be, they're not ready to have their children learn. It's just very sensitive, but everybody has a right to make their own choices. But I believe that it not being taught in certain ways is a dishonor to the community.
There's a very simple way to just teach young kids that it's normal to just be yourself. And that's the main story that is taught in a lot of children books, is that just be yourself, be comfortable, treat everyone equally. And when you have books that instead flip that perspective, those are the harmful ones that I think indoctrinate the children to feel negative and feel scared in a way. And, you know, there are 100% regulations that should be in place, such as this content is obviously not suited for these ages. That's simple. But anyways, to move forward and finish this up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about your journey as an ally, or any final thoughts you may have?
Well, my journey as an ally, I guess I'm still discovering, since I didn't know I was an ally. I love this. But if you're struggling out there, just know that there's always someone to talk to, that you're not alone. People, educate yourself. Listen to others' perspective. I hope that I've been able to let others know that it's okay, because we had that stigma. I was a kid, you know, I made it myself in the 70s and 80s. And that's all we were. We were kids looking to just go outside and play and make friends. We weren't looking, you know, out there. We weren't worried about AIDS or, you know, someone liking someone of the opposite sex. So just let kids be kids. Let them be able, give them the tools, love them, because at the end of the day, they need to be loved, and accept them. Accept them for who they are. Accept your neighbor. If we can accept people that come from other nationalities and other countries into the countries that we live in, and I'm not just saying the United States, if we can go to other countries and they can accept us just because we're another human being coming to visit, what is the difference that someone who is in the LGBT community goes there or is who they are? Everyone needs to be free to be who they are. So let's accept them the same way we accept those people that come into our businesses on a daily basis. Those people that walk into churches, grocery stores, everywhere. That person that walks past you on the sidewalk. Just accept people for who they are, and that's it.
That was a very touching and lovely final note that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, hopefully. And I think a lot of people will take a lot from this episode. And even the people that might have been in the same shoes as you might have had their own, you know, aren't exactly a part of the community, but have so many around them that are, and just trying to be there and support them. And, you know, it is it's a new world. It's not something you know how to travel. It's something you just learn as you go. You learn how to be there for people and understand how you can help them when they need it. So I want to applaud you a lot for sharing your story and being here and changing the minds of other people and allowing them to see from a different set of eyes and a whole nother world, hopefully, and many more to be shared from here on.
Thank you for being here, Tata, and sharing your story to our listeners.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime.
If you're listening on Spotify, please take a moment to leave a rating on our podcast and respond to our open-ended question and poll to engage further with us in this episode.
Don't forget to share this episode and connect with us on social media to continue the conversation. Until next time, keep celebrating your identity and supporting each other. This is the Queer Quarter signing off.
Bye!